Alright guys, welcome back to the channel. So today we're going to go over some decks that I have made and I have taken apart for various reasons. However, these decks, I didn't take them apart because they were bad necessarily. It was just that, or they're more fun. It was just that I wanted to start moving on to different things to do with my commanders, and I've limited myself to about 8 commanders. So unfortunately, I cut these from the lineup. However, these are super fun to play, and I definitely suggest that, people give them a try, We'll go ahead and get started with Lazav here. So Lazav, I kind of wanted to make a Demir reanimator deck, and I saw him, and so basically when he attacks, exile a card from a graveyard. So that's any card. So, any graveyard. So then investigate. So when you sack a clue, you may have Lazav become a copy of a creature exile with it until end of turn. So I was trying to find ways to kind of abuse this effect as well as play a reanimator kind of strategy. So, and a lot of creatures, like if you do build this, I would suggest getting creatures that have attack triggers as well as ETBs. So that way you have those. So Grave Titan was in here, but let's go over stuff like that. This card's insane. If you get the ultimate and you deal damage to someone, you get to put a blue or black creature card from your your library onto the battlefield. This card is really funny. And then we have the reanimator package, basically. I had other ones, but those are just kind of to show you what I had. I was also playing a sub theme of polymorph, so that way I always had creatures to get onto the battlefield in some way, because I was not playing that many creatures. I was playing like 10 or something like that, or not even. I think it was like 8. So anyway, I had a bunch of cards that make tokens, and then I polymorph them, and then I mill cards until I hit a creature, and then if that creature dies, oh well, Lazav gets him anyway. So this card does not have an attack trigger, but the ETB is incredibly powerful. There's another card that this is really good with. Basically, when it enters, exile a instant sorcery from your graveyard, and you get to play for free. Troll is just he's a troll, so you just put him in the grave for 1 mana. Shard of the Void Dragon has an attack trigger that's kind of annoying when it attacks. Basically, each opponent sacks a non-land permanent. When he attacks, you have to cast an instant sorcery card from your hand without paying the mana cost. So that's kind of insane. I want to find another deck for him because he's got a really good effect. Mask of Worm, Mouth Viper, and then I also had, maybe I put it in here for a minute. I had so Rise of the Dark Realms, obviously. So you can get Scholar here of Lost Trove, and then exile this from your grave. That's pretty good, especially like this deck was kind of fast. Like turn 4, I would have a guaranteed way of getting some sort of big bomb on the board. Yeah, so with this deck, I like to keep track of like how many times I win or lose. I don't know. That's what Modern does to a person. Anyway, I'm kind of a maniac, I guess. Lazav, I went 6-3 in casual. These are casual games. This isn't like CDH, so that's pretty good. You know what I mean? It's like 6-3. Like that's a pretty good win rate there. Sometimes the polymorph stuff was interfering with like the reanimator stuff, so that's why I kind of just took the deck apart and made just one specific deck that does one specific thing. I'll get to covering that at some point. we have Jodah. This card is so fun. Basically, you get to cast any spell from your hand by paying the 5 colors. So, hard part about this deck was getting the 5 colors. But the thing is that as long as you have green in your colors, it's pretty easy to do because green has so many cards that just search basic lands for like 1 or 2 mana. So it wasn't too hard. As long as you open with a green or a forest, you were fine. So I was playing like 42 lands or something like that because you really only need like your bombs, like a couple bombs and then him. So Bear of the Heavens. This card's funny. When he dies, destroy all permanents at the beginning of the next end step. Reaver. This is one of those cards where, you know, this is like one of the few decks where this card is decent in because you get the caster for 5 instead of 8. So, because you cannot reanimate this. I mean, you can, but like, it has to come into play from your hand. So you have to cast it. So, it's like kind of a way to get around that. Unfortunately, Jodah will die if this happens, but, you know, it's a good board clear. Blood Tyrant. This card's funny. Ashen Rider. Doom Blast. You choose Jodah, and then you blow everything up. Enraged. This guy. Progenitus. Again, you can just cast it from your hand. And that gets around that. Primeval Spawn. Again, you just cast it with Jodah's effect. And he enters. This card is so funny. Let me read this again. It would enter the battlefield if it wasn't cast or if no mana. Well, you are spending mana. Yeah, I had to check that. Arcane Endeavor. Inkfoil Leviathan. This is Warp World. Myojin. And then Overwhelming Forces. You just get to blow one person's board up who's getting away. And then Kuro. So, this deck I went like 3 and 5 with from what I have. So the problem was some of these like cards, I was just basically punching people down with everything I had. I also had the 9 mana, what is it called? 9 mana artifact creature. He's something something. I don't remember. He's a 9/9 with flying. Had a bunch of things that were just big flying creatures. Sakama, I think. Yeah, one of the big like flying dragons, and also has Sakama. But yeah, deck was fun. Took it apart mainly because sometimes even with like a big threat, you know, it just wasn't good enough, unfortunately, to keep up. But it's still an incredibly fun deck to play. We have Yennett. This is I did a deck on this, I think like last year. I don't know. It's been a while. It's basically just my Esper Blink deck. So I had Grab Abomination. This card is insane when you blink it. Basically you get to cast spells from your opponent's hand or their graveyard or the top of their library, I believe. Yes. Phyrexian Delver just gets stuff out of the grave. So you just blink him, you get another thing. Gonti, because that's funny. If you blink Gonti, like, find a way to infinitely, you just kill all your opponents. So, I mean, you'll mill them out, I believe. Dimir House Guard, just a search. He just draws cards. This card he's not very good. Sully, I don't know. Angel of Runes was another fun card in this deck because you just blink it and you just exile basically everybody's artifacts or enchantments because you just keep blinking it and getting value. And then Callus here. A lot more cards, obviously, I had in it, but that's what I wanted to showcase. The problem I had, I mean, this deck was, I think I focused too much on the theme with this one, like having fun. Well, having fun and as best as I know how, but I had also grief in this, and you know, cards that enter and you get to discard cards from other people's hands and stuff. But you know, when you focus on theme too much, you don't really have a way to actually win the game. So I went 1 and 4 with this. That was only because I was able to loop Dust Mangler like every turn for like 3 turns, and I killed everybody with that. He's just a guy, when he enters, each opponent discards a card, sacks a creature, and discards a card, or loses 4 life. So yeah,